latest Panthers news and opinions from the fan perspective.
That Thomas Davis mentioned to Kroger, Chris Kroger, a Charlotte radio host, that he was interested in a contract extension before training camp started. Now he's going into the last year of his deal. I don't think this would be or is necessarily a problem right away, but it could get thorny given that Greg Olson as well has said some of these things. So initial reactions, we'll start with you, Mel, on TD's call for a new contract.
Well, I think most of you guys out there know that I just recently moved back to the Queen City from the West Coast. And I tell you, I'm loving being back because I'm hearing, a lot more WFNZ, a lot more radio. Every time I'm in the car, I'm listening to it. And I actually did hear that clip with TD talking to Kroger. And, all the blowback from it, it's been exaggerated, or as Trump would say, a little bit of fake news, right? It's kind of taking a little taking a little grain of sand and making it a big mountain out of a molehill, really, because he was very cordial about it. He didn't say anything like, "Hey, I want a new contract," or "I'm not going to play if I don't get a new contract," or "I'm pissed," or anything. All he simply said was, "Hey, I'm going into the last year of my contract. I still have some time left. I've done good work here. I put up good numbers. I would love to get a new contract done, do it before the start of training camp. We're not even talking now, but I'd love to think we get something done." And it was as simple as that. And quite honestly, I agree with him. When you're talking about going into the last year of your contract, Greg Olson, I feel a little bit differently about. But Thomas Davis going into the last year of his contract, at that age, a legend and arguably the best, definitely one of the best, face of the franchise. If you're making a Mount Rushmore of Panthers, Thomas Davis is on it. Going into the last year of his contract, I think it's right to extend the guy. So I don't think he was out of bounds at all.
David, what's your initial reaction to this as a storyline in addition to Greg Olson?
I mean, I agree with Aaron. You really can't. Like, we got to be careful not to blow this up into every time we did it with Olsen. Now every time it comes up, we're gonna go Josh Norman on everybody. You can't do this.
Right.
I mean, Thomas Davis is arguably the second greatest linebacker in Panther history right now, next to Sam Mills. And I say that now, and I know some people are gonna go, "What about Luke?" I'll talk to you about Luke in 4 years. Right now, we're talking about the epitome of, if there's anybody on this roster that epitomizes what Sam Mills keep pounding is all about,
right,
it is Thomas Davis, because Thomas Davis should have been gone years ago.
Right.
So, I mean, when I look at it, what type of extension are we talking about? Now, I'm not giving the man $10 million a year.
No.
When it comes down to that, you got to make a business decision. And, at that point, loyalties go out the door. You got to do what's right for the team going forward. We don't want a Bobby Vanilla where we paying this guy, not even be in uniform. Right. So with Thomas Davis, you got to pay him if the price is right. And I don't see Thomas as somebody that'll hold the team hostage. I think he knows what his fair market value is. And I think I don't think he wants to wear any other colors than Panther colors. So, so I think this will be a situation where we can't get ahead of the horse. We just got to pump our brakes and let it play out. Do I think something to get done before training camp? I don't know.
I agree. All right. So all of that completely makes sense, but the one thing I think that makes this a little bit complicated is, first of all, that you got two veteran players who are approaching that kind of crucible moment in their careers where, for instance, Greg Olson, we know it's time for him. He's got to get his now, right? We get that, and we understand that. Thomas Davis, again, he's not going to be able to command that. But I think where he complicated things is that he didn't rule out playing for another team.
Right.
And that was like, okay, so how is this going to get caustic in some ways, right? or could it? Then the other thing I think that complicates this is at what point Thomas Davis played 100% of the defensive snaps last year. I know that they're saying that they're going to put him on a pitch count a little bit more, and they want to work Shaq Thompson into onto the field more. But it's just kind of one of those things, like, how do you even put Shaq on the field when Thomas Davis is playing like top 10 linebacker in the league type play? Right. And then at some point, you got this. What I'm just saying is all of a sudden his contract's coming to his end. His role in Carolina is going to be, the coaching staff at least indicates they want to diminish. It just feels like this all of a sudden could be painful in some way. I don't know if it's going to be with Thomas Davis, with Greg Olsen, but you can't make everybody happy at some point, and I think the fans could be the ones that are unhappy at the end. I don't know, but I thought that Davis saying that he has more football left in him, even if it's not with the Panthers, was a real sobering moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta. I mean, at the end of the day, if you cut somebody. And full disclosure, before there was a Carolina Panther, and I know we're going to talk about that later, but before there was the Carolina Panthers, I was a San Francisco I was a huge Joe Montana guy.
Man, you and Joey.
And I never, for one moment, if you'd have told me in 91 that Montana would be playing for another team,
Kansas City,
I would have told you that was no way in hell that was going to happen. And when it happened, I was shocked. But Montana still had a little football left into him because he nearly got Kansas City to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So with TD, my thing is we never got Mills a ring. But I would be glad if we got TD a ring.
I agree.
And I think ultimately Thomas Davis, even if he goes somewhere to play for a year, I would not be shocked to see Thomas Davis as the linebacker coach in Carolina in the not so distant future.
Wouldn't that be sweet?
Yeah, kind of like bringing back. Around the team. That's kind of like resurrecting the Sam Fields
like
and
Pearl.
Sam Mills.
Like Ricky Pearl. Yep.
Well, wasn't not Sam Fields, Mark Fields? Wasn't he a coach for a while? One of them also coached with the Panthers back in the day. That was Fields. It was right around when Mills got sick. Well, Mills was a coach at the end, right?
Yeah, Mills was a coach at the end. I don't remember if Fields was coaching or not. I know he was involved with the team in some way when he was sick.
So I think I would say that I think that it's one thing to cut bait with like a Josh Norman or to usher Jordan Gross unceremoniously out the door in some ways, or even Steve Smith, is that I thought his personality was caustic enough to where I just feel like if you do this to either Olsen or TD, like the whole fan base could revolt. Like, I mean, at some point that even has to contribute to whether it gets done. All right.
Subscribe to the C3 Carolina Panthers podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, or anywhere you can catch an RSS feed. Check out CarolinaCatChronicles.com for the latest Panthers news and opinions from the fan perspective.
Great cash, homie.